true experts in the field, whether they're talking about ITIL or they're talking about cloud software. And their job is to go out there and engage online and offline, whether they're presenting at an event like this, or they're out, either writing in their own blogs, writing on our blogs, tweeting on our behalf, engaging with other important influencers on Twitter, Google+, what have you. And so it's not just about marketing anymore. I think many enterprise organizations, not necessarily see technologies, but I've seen many corporations will say, we'll throw an intern, we'll have them do the social, or somebody very junior, and it's really scary to me. I think, we're starting to see that change where it's not just marketing, dedicating people, it's the communication organization, it's product development, it's the entire customer experience end to end, it's support. We have a ton of user group communities where the support team actually has staff, and their job is to make sure the presidents of those user groups, who aren't employees at all, they're actually users, right? That are presidents, and making sure that those communities are engaged, that they are getting information that helps them. And so we're taking a look at a complete end-to-end customer experience and saying, okay, where do we need? We asked our customers, where are you not happy? And one of the, we're starting to see that there's definitely opportunities, like on the product development side. How can we make our, SaaS solutions, for example, more valuable to our customers all the way at the beginning stages in research and development? And then how can we use social media to continuously get that feedback from, beginning to end? And ultimately, we want them to be likely to recommend our product, right? So there's people from all over the organization throughout, not just marketing, and that is a very good change to see.
So just the other side of human capital, you mentioned about if you can get a load of your staff from LinkedIn to start promoting things that have massive impact. You also said before that I think when you first started, very few of your staff actually had access to social. And I guess there are risks, right, in kind of empowering your staff and getting them to start promoting you, especially if you've got 14,000 people. Yeah. How do you control that risk, and do you need social media policies? How do you make that safe?
Yeah, so we did a lot of things. So we took us about a year and a half to have company commitment all the way from IT to communications to the board, the actual board of directors of the company. We even involved legal, of course. There was HR. I mean, all hands on deck to make the decision of, are we going to really open up access from 15, 20 people in the organization to 14,000? And is there an in-between, right? There's also an in-between. And the decision was made, and it's really funny. I still remember this conference call when we were on this call, and then the question was, how are we going to manage this risk? And one of the arguments was, well, people aren't going to do work. People are going to be playing on Facebook all day. And the reality, somebody came up with the argument, and they said, well, somebody could be looking at ESPN all day too, right? And they're not doing their job. It's a management issue, right? If your employee's not doing their job, that's a bigger issue that you as a manager need to take care of. And we kind of laughed. But in all seriousness, we had about 2 weeks from the day that decision was made in that phone call to the day that we were going to be opening up access. And we basically, we had to expand and update our policies, our governance. We had to create an intranet type of presence that not just talked about what our social media strategy was across the board, but what each channel was that we were going to be focusing on, and what it meant to the company, but what it meant as an employee and how you could contribute specifically. And then within that, we also, we have some more extensive sort of policy reference documents. And then people, for example, also had the opportunity. We created a Twitter directory that was completely opt-in. So, if I wanted to add my @Lingo's Twitter handle, that was my decision. If my decision as an employee was to have my Twitter handle, and on one side I might use it, it's that gray area. Do you want to use it for personal, professional, or both? If people in any way, shape, or form were speaking on behalf of the company, which is fine, they had the option to share that Twitter handle. It kind of served two purposes. That allowed us to empower people to not be afraid to use social, but also gave us an opportunity to have a visibility into the people, the individuals in the company that were helping to share the message. Which leads me to another side of the coin, which is, to your point, managing the risk. One of the things that we did an analysis recently, and it was, you know, can we control the message? 100% no. But we definitely can always do a better job of empowering our employees to sort of understand what the sort of overarching message is for the company, and in each of the areas we're focusing on, to make sure that they don't have to copy and paste. Obviously, that's not genuine, but they need to be empowered with that type of information, and not just what we're doing with consumer-driven IT, for example, or that our CE World event's coming up, but that they're really also armed with the content that might support, how they might not know that we had an IDC research white paper that was available, and so empowering them that way, and that's not easy. I mean, that's something we're figuring out now, and we also just did some great videos. We built our own through Camtasia, Cam Studios. You probably heard of that. I basically got on my computer and I took people through the most common questions I thought they'd be afraid to ask, maybe embarrassed to ask, like what is Facebook? Some people really don't know. I was talking with sales execs in Latin America, and a lot of them still didn't have a LinkedIn account. They had no idea what that was. So sort of the basic type of videos, just getting through the 101 stuff. But then we also had some more sort of sophisticated videos that would go into some more sort of engagement advice on how you can be engaging. And basically the screenshot voiceover captures real quick. So
we have 45,000 employees in the U.S. And there was great concern, not in the U.S., but by our parent company in the U.K., that would also have 45,000 spokesmen for the company. And the president here of our company, Linda Hudson, who embraces these sorts of communication tools, said, I don't understand why that's a problem. And she was able to do that, I think, because her main customer, which is the Defense Department, embraces this as well. For those who don't know, the Defense Department has a social media policy. If you took out the header and the footer of the policy, because it's government, so you gotta have lots of header and lots of footer, it might be a page. And basically it says access to social media sites or to internet-based capabilities, because you can't say social media because it's a government, so you have to come up with a complicated name. Internet-based capabilities is open. Anyone can do it from their workstations at any time, go and do. We have some guidelines, some kind of do's and don'ts. Don't use profanity. Nothing different that you wouldn't have on email or for that matter, just for smart people on the phone. Don't use those things, that kind of language. And that's it. When I was at the Pentagon and I asked Secretary Gates about that, I said, this means that you're going to have conversations going on about policies and issues that aren't yours. And since we put all those links to those, at least at the official Twitter and Facebook sites and LinkedIn on the DoD website, they'll actually be on your website. So you'll have non-approved policy and guidelines on your website. So his answer was the same as Linda Hudson's. I can't imagine why that would be a problem. Because he got it. And he knew that sort of transparency and openness gave credibility to everything else that was there. Also, he realized the conversation's going on anyway. He's got 3 million people he's responsible for, if you count the men and women and their families in the Department of Defense. They're stopping Twitter or Facebook or something because there was or wasn't a policy. No, these conversations are happening. They're happening in our company, with our employees. Empower them to go ahead and do it. So give them cover on top and allow the creativity to come up from the bottom. And it's already happening anyway. So embrace it, and it's there. It's here.
I think if the government and the defense contractors are happy for all their employees to be on Facebook, you've got no excuse now. So next up, Price is going to be talking a bit more about how they work with the government on social media. We've probably got time for just one question to the panel before he starts. Has anyone got any urgent questions? Yeah, we'll take one.
I have a remark, CQ question, because I was listening to all of 3 speakers. In my opinion, social media is partly usable for business to business purposes. Probably you missed the launch of the business media concept at 1 p.m. in which we initiated a concept of companies which are interrelated to each other and are communicating from a company's interest instead of individuals, which is in the case of social media. That's one. I think the business media, if you have your company and if you have your so many employees and if you have your strategy, I think it should be more interesting to put the company's perspective and also the company's interest as the center of gravity in all communications to all contexts, and that could be companies or other organizations or whatever, instead of the individual, the same individual on Facebook or the same individual on LinkedIn. So because then your policy regarding digital media activities, not only social, but also the concept which we launched, business media activities, become more precise and more effective with no spam and irritation.
So how do you ensure your main company message is actually going out when you've got all these employees?
Well, I think part of it, I mean, I agree with a lot that was just said, and to some degree maybe disagree a little bit, only because, you know, do I think that the 14,000 people in our company, you know, acting as one is sort of the whole puzzle? I'd be crazy to think that that's all it was. You know, part of that extending the message is the individuals. It's what we do from a communication standpoint. It's what we're doing through our subject matter experts. It's what we're also doing in the voice of the customer. So, you know, one of the challenges we had is, you know, in our space, you know, we are, you know, in the same space we have, you know, IBM, we have Oracle, we have, you know, smaller, now getting much larger vendors like VMware that are in many ways, like for example, IBM is our biggest competitor, but they're also our biggest partner. So how do you manage that? I'm sitting right next to Price, and he's probably a customer, and he's probably doing systems integration of our technology, and neither of us have any clue that that's even happening. So, and it's probably is happening. I'm going to take a guess. Well. And probably, yeah, right. And there's probably somebody complaining about it, and we are hopefully finding it and addressing it. But in all, so, you know, one of our challenges was, you know, 5 years ago, a lot of people didn't know who we were. We were originally known as Computer Associates, and then we are now, we were then CA Inc., and now we're CA Technologies, and many of you probably never even heard of us. And so how do we sort of, way back 5 years ago, and actually in the last 3 years, we started integrating social into the outreach of a program we started, which was Smart Enterprise Magazine, Smart Enterprise Exchange. The exchange side of it came in about 4 years ago, and it was largely, you know, addressing the VPs, the CIOs, the senior leadership of our relevant primary audience, our target audience. You know, and how do we address that audience that's looking for thought leadership, that's looking for help, that's looking to learn, that's looking to grow their careers, you know, and they might not even know who we are. So we branded the Smart Enterprise program in the hopes that we were going to be bringing relevant content to them. And we didn't necessarily care that it was about our products. It was, you know, bringing in different IT trends, bringing in experts to come in and speak. A lot of times it was our own customers talking about their implementations, and sometimes it had nothing to do with our products, and it didn't matter to us because it was about sort of how they were, you know, succeeding in delivering us the objectives of their organizations. So, I mean, to your point, I think it's kind of three high-level areas. It's the individual employees and how do you empower them with the message. It's at the corporate levels, whether it's a subject matter expert or a communications team, sort of how do they do that outreach. And many times it's you know, working with our own customers